At the All-Star break, we're sitting here with about 37 wins at the top of the Western Conference. This is going to be just some random background footage against the Orlando Magic, but today we're going to be talking about some midseason grades for the team, as well as talking about our future plans. With the #1 record in the West, you'd think I would be pretty happy, but that is not 100% true. One of our biggest issues is in finances. We have our core of Lillard, George, Smart, Powell, Simmons, and even Nance through 2023. It's good to have all those guys together, but this leaves us with no ability to sign free agents until 2024. Lillard and George are here to stay, and Simmons and Nance should be okay at about $7 million per year. Worst case scenario is we can probably get a draft pick for them. But the issue is going to be Norman Powell and Marcus Smart, two players who are very effective but also take up large parts of our cap. So for our first midseason grades, let's talk about these two. Smart is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and he can stop anybody with ease. Offensively, he is only an average playmaker and shooter, but he is still much better than when he first entered into the league. Norman Powell is not near the defender Smart is, but he's no slouch either. He's also a much better shooter and even a solid finisher around the rim. Smart's scoring is much lower than what is expected, as he's only putting up 7 points on 38% field goal percentage. Meanwhile, Norman Powell has been putting up 18 points per game on some pretty good shooting. But if you have been watching the other episodes, you know that we've had some issue with our offense. I think a lot of that comes from our bench, and outside of Simmons and maybe Iguodala, we don't have a true playmaker coming off the bench. To try and switch this, and to try and help out our offense, I'm actually going to be benching Norman Powell for the rest of the season and starting Marcus Smart. Powell can run the 1 or 2 quite well, and I think he can be a true spark coming off the bench. Meanwhile, Smart, all I need him to do is go sit in the corner on offense while Lillard and George do their thing. Defensively, we'll put him out there and he can harass whoever he goes up against. I'm also changing the play styles of these guys a little bit. I actually set up Smart to be mentored with Damien Lillard, and I also want him working on his shooting abilities and his outside game. Long term, he just isn't going to be worth that much to us if he can't be at least an average shooter. As far as Norman Powell, I'm trying to take away some of his playmaking role. I've been thinking about it, and I've been trying to use Norman Powell, I think, in the wrong role. Instead, I want him to be used in the same way that we see someone like Tim Hardaway Jr. or Seth Curry. A quick guy, mostly playing off ball, hitting catch and shoot threes, who can sometimes take it to the basket. So for the grades, I would say Powell does get a B+, for he has been pretty good on offense, but in game he just has not been living up to the expectations he has been during the sim. So I'm hoping off the bench he can just do a bit better at that. Marcus Smart does just get a B. Defensively, I have loved to use him in games, and he's actually been pretty decent to use as a playmaker as well, but during the sim, he's been pretty terrible offensively, and that's something that he has to improve on if he's going to play out the rest of his contract with us. So anyways, that was 400 words about Marcus Smart and Norman Powell in a video game. Now let's talk about our guy, Damien Lillard. Averaging 28 points, 6 assists, while shooting a 50-40-90, I am definitely going to give him an A so far. Unfortunately though, 2K isn't even putting him in the MVP conversation, despite having those stats and a #1 seed. I'm pretty sure Damien Lillard is just cursed to never win any major awards. With our #2 is Paul George. George is putting up 23 points, 4 assists, and 6 rebounds. George has been absolutely amazing ever since trading for him. He's improved our defense while being a worthwhile shot creator and an amazing catch and shoot player. I don't think I could have expected much more out of him. He definitely gets an A+. Next is Nurkic. Averaging 13 points and 11 rebounds, he looks good on paper, but we have long exposed his inability to stay in the game and his massive stamina shortcomings. This was also a contract year for him, and we actually could have signed him, but I chose not to. While Nurkic's stamina is something that we could have tried to improve on, he is also wanting $18 million per year. That is just too much for a player with those kind of stats. As good as a center as he is, we just don't need to be paying a center that much. But luckily, we are headed into a deep free agency class. Jonas Valanciunas, Mitchell Robinson, Wendell Carter Jr., Bobby Portis, Mason Plumlee, LaMarcus Aldridge, Thomas Bryant, Andre Drummond, Enes Kanter, Al Horford, Serge Ibaka, Dwight Howard, Blake Griffin, Isaiah Stewart, Daniel Gafford, Ivica Zubac, Cody Zeller, Montrezl Harrell, Hassan Whiteside, Jackson Hayes, Tristan Thompson, DeMarcus Cousins, JaVale McGee, and Willie Cauley-Stein are all free agents. Because of this stacked class, I think we can definitely get 2 solid guys at a minimum who can make up for Nurkic's stats. So I'm going to give Jusuf Nurkic a B-. He can definitely return to us if he wants a much smaller deal in the offseason, but if he wants that $18 million a year he thinks he can get, then we will happily move on with someone else. Larry Nance Jr. has been a little disappointing. He's only averaging 6 and 6 this year, and he hasn't been doing too much of floor spacing or scoring like how I hoped him to. He has been a pretty good rebounder and actually been playing better as a defender than I expected from. I do want to look in the offseason to see if there's anyone else we can get over him, maybe even just someone to space out the floor and have Nance move on to the bench, or possibly using Nance in a trade. I'm just going to give him a C+ for this year. Tony Snell is only averaging 0.6 attempts from 3 per game, but he is making 53% of them. In games that I've played with him, he does pretty well. While he isn't too much in the sim rotation, he's still a great 3-and-D guy to have, and I want to bring him back next season. He's going to get a B+ from me. Anthony Simmons has been an average 3-point shooter, as well as scoring 8 points per game off the bench. I can't complain given that he is backing up Damien Lillard. I would love to see him grow a little more, but to be honest, he is also replaceable. At the age of 22, I do think that there is still a little more time that he has to develop, but come trade deadline next year, we may be trying to do something. I just don't know how I feel about having him, Powell, Smart, and Lillard all on the same team. Regardless, his play has been fine, and he is still a pretty good slasher and shooter to come off the bench. I'm going to give him an A-. I brought in Marc Gasol hoping that he could help out our center issue. His play has been limited, but he has been pretty good in the minutes he's been in. Defensively, he plays alright, and he's been able to space out the floor pretty well. But he did inform us that this will be his last season in the NBA, so I'm hoping that we can make him go out on top. I'm going to give him a B+ for this year. Next is Jaleel Okafor, someone who I really wanted to try and revive the career of, as I feel like he's never really gotten a fair shot. This year, Okafor has absolutely been off the charts. He's been pretty good when matched up against other backup centers, and I absolutely love having him as a roll man towards the hoop. He's also been doing a lot better than I expected he would from both rebounding and on the defensive end of things. I certainly plan on bringing him back as our number 2 or 3 center for next season, and I'd be shocked if we actually can't get him for another minimum. Okafor is going to get an A+ for this season. Our last rotation player is Andre Iguodala, another player we traded scraps for, but he's also been a huge part of our team. At this age, he is a solid dunker, but he hasn't really been scoring too much. He's been playing some amazing level all-NBA type defense. Just look at what he did in the last episode. When he and Smart are on the court, offenses simply cannot score. But like Marc Gasol, he did announce that he will be retiring after this season, and he's gonna have some big shoes to fill. I'm going to give him an A- for this season. So there has been one player in this series who I've completely forgotten about. That is Nassir Little. I only actually started giving him minutes after the All-Star break, but Little is someone who I think can play like a younger Iguodala. He's a good dunker with an ability to hit a standing 3 at a good rate. He's also quite athletic for a forward. He does lack on some of the playmaking, and he is only an average defender, making him still a pretty raw prospect. By next season, I think he will be playing more consistent minutes, especially if we can't find anyone else in free agency. So I think we are definitely in a good spot with the players that we have on the roster. But we do also just have some financial woes, and I think we might be headed for a bit of a tough offseason. After all, we are going to have to find out if this was just an outlier half season, or if these guys that we've assembled is for real. So as you saw, we simmed forward to the last few weeks of the season, and we ended up with 54 wins with the number 1 spot in the Western Conference. Absolutely amazing, so we were definitely able to keep up that same pace. We also ended up finishing top 13 in offenses rather than being down at the 17th spot while keeping up that number 1 defense. So it looks like for about those 6 weeks that we simmed, it was worth it to move Marcus Smart to the starting lineup and let Norman Powell control the bench a little more. Next episode, we're going to finish up those last 2 weeks of the season. We're going to go over all of our end of season stuff, and most importantly, we're going to start the playoffs. So that's it for this one. I'll catch you guys later.